Okay. So, it's been a minute since we actually did something like this. Now, just a heads up, there could possibly be somebody of our friends that may possibly join our Discord server with us in it, but just throwing that out there in case if any of our friends actually do. So, if they do, we'll continue with the stream a little bit. But we're going to talk about a PlayStation fanboy, a Sony pony that just absolutely just wants to cry because PlayStation has got to move forward in terms of profits, selling their games, and just they got to move on. The only companies that are not going to do this, at least anytime soon, is Nintendo. And this is the thing what Reforge Gaming does not get. Okay, a company releases their games on, like, let's say, PlayStation, for an example, releases a game, let's say, Uncharted 4, okay? Wonderful game, like, probably the best PlayStation 4 exclusive game ever, although it's not technically a PlayStation 4 exclusive anymore, because it's officially now on PC, but it's still technically an exclusive to just the PlayStation console platforms, but not like Xbox or Nintendo and whatnot. Microsoft has actually started to see the light on the writing on the wall. Even though, like, they have not made, like, tremendous amounts of money, that is the reason why they put their games on PC. From the very, very beginning, especially somewhere in the middle, from the beginning to the middle of the Xbox One console generation. Now, they did not do this with all games, as far as I'm aware, but a good portion of their first-party games, they released them day and date on PC, or, however, released an Xbox version first on the Xbox platforms, then released a PC version, like, sometime later on down the road. And they have actually started to put more games onto other platforms in the last 2 to 3 years. Like, if you look back at last year and earlier this year, they have confirmed that, or well, I should say, they have already released Forza Horizon 5, although that game has been out, like, somewhere around, like, it's been out for almost 4 years at this point. But they released it to the PlayStation consoles. Same thing with Sea of Thieves. Early last year, I should say. I was about to say late last year. Early last year, they released Sea of Thieves on PlayStation 5 early last year. You want to know why? You really want to know why, Reforge Gaming? It is because they want to freaking sell as many copies as possible. Like, this dude just does not get it. He thinks everything should be one individual platform. Okay? Now, the Xbox consoles, I know they did not sell as well as, like, the Nintendo Switch, the PlayStation 4, and then the same thing with the Series X and S. They're not selling as good as the PlayStation 5, but they're basically, like, not selling at all. Like, they're selling some here and there. Like, yes, it might not be a super lots amounts, but they're still selling consoles. Like, the Xbox Series X's and Series S, even though it's sitting at somewhere around 30 to 35 million consoles, that is still better than, like, let's say the worst console ever, the Nintendo Wii U. That system didn't even barely sold 14 million consoles. That was terrible. Then you got the GameCube, as well as Microsoft's first ever Xbox console, the OG Xbox, which did better numbers than the Wii U, but it still was not like super amount. Like, we're talking 20 to somewhere around 24 million consoles worldwide. I think the Xbox might have sold a tiny bit better than the GameCube, but we're really talking somewhere around between 21 to 24 million units. So the Xbox Series consoles are doing better than those numbers. Like I said, it's sitting at around 30 to 35 million, and it will continue to sell, but I know it's probably not going to sell like crazy numbers. Like, it's like only been selling like a couple million or just a few million each year, but I mean, that's still better than some older consoles like the Wii U, like the GameCube, like the OG Xbox. It's still doing better than before, or I should say than those consoles. So because of that, with game budgets, like, we're talking skyrocketing pricing. Like, game budgets are flying off the roof in terms of price points. Like, we're not just talking $500,000. We're not just talking $4 million. We're not just talking $50 million. We're not talking $100 million. And we're not especially talking $150 million. No. We are talking like $200 million up to $500 million. That's how much game budgets are with current games that are getting developed currently right now. That's how much those game budgets are. And in order to at least break even, the companies have to put their games on other platforms, especially with Xbox. Like, that is the reason why Microsoft has been putting its games on PlayStation 5 and Nintendo consoles, especially with the Nintendo Switch and going to be Nintendo Switch 2, because those consoles sell units left and right. And you want to know what actually managed to happen? Well, ever since Microsoft released games like Sea of Thieves, Forza Horizon 5, Grounded, and the list goes on, they have been some of the best-selling games on the PlayStation platform. Like, we're talking like top 10 best-selling games on the PlayStation platforms. 5 of those out of the 10 were Microsoft first-party games. Forza Horizon 5 was one, and I believe Sea of Thieves was another one when it came out late last year, or early last year, again, I should say. It was actually also touted as one of the best-selling games on PlayStation, like, not just physically, but mostly digitally. So we're not even talking the physical editions of the games. We're just straight talking the digital upgrades, or the digital downloads. They have been some of the best-selling games on the PlayStation platforms. So, over recent years, Sony has actually decided, well, we should actually probably release our games on PC. This is where Reforge Gaming is literally still, like, he's still talking out of his ass about this shit. Like, Reforge Gaming literally still thinks that a game should still only release on one individual platform just to sell consoles. And to be fair, I still think that consoles should have some kind of exclusivity. Even not just exclusive permanent to the console, but what I think they should do is they should have a game, like a first-party game, be like on its console for at least 1 year, and then after that year's over, then release it to the other consoles. That's what I think that these companies should do. That way, it helps the consoles at least to be sold it away. But in some time rather than later, it also goes to the other platforms so they can sell it to more people literally the following year. That's what I think that these companies are going to be doing. Microsoft, I don't think, is going to be doing it like this, although not every game has been like that. I mean, Stalker 2 is a really good game. It was my game of the year for last year in 2024. It just got announced about a month or so ago that it is going to be coming out for the PlayStation 5 this November or October or sometime this holiday season. It will be getting a PlayStation 5 version of the game. And what's going to be nice about that game is it's already confirmed from the announcement that there is going to be a PlayStation 5 Pro enhancement for that game. So I'm telling you one thing. Sorry about that. But I'm telling you one thing. I'm definitely looking forward to playing Stalker 2 again on our PlayStation 5s, especially our PlayStation 5 Pro. Like, I cannot wait to see what the performance is going to be like, at what resolution, and what the quality mode is going to look like, and if even there's going to be even some sorts of like a balance option that gives you pretty much in between like most of the recently newer games on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series consoles as well, mainly the Xbox Series X and not the Xbox Series S because it's a little bit underpowered compared to the Series X. But if you have a 120 hertz capable television, it doesn't matter if it's a full array LED TV from Sony or a mini LED TV from Hisense or TCL or an OLED from Samsung or LG. Any TV that is 120 hertz capable with VRR on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, some games, when you have 120 hertz basically enabled on either your PS5 or Xbox Series X, you basically get an extra graphical mode that is basically called balance, which pretty much makes you pretty much decide if you want performance, quality, or if you want a mixture of both. So that, I think, is a really, really good feature that they added to VRR capable 120 hertz televisions. Now, even TVs that are higher than 120 hertz, it doesn't have to be necessarily 120 hertz, but mostly that's the only highest hertz that both the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X can actually do, even the Series S to an example. But when you look at it like that, I honestly think that they might actually add that mode or that mode for a VAR capable to the PlayStation 5 and even the PlayStation 5 Pro. And man, honestly, that's going to be awesome to see what it's going to look like and run. And if you're wondering what balance mode usually runs, it mostly runs the game at like 40 FPS and could go somewhere up to 60. And you still get a good bit of the quality mode that you would get on quality mode with maybe just like a teeny bit of lower resolution. But balance mode is honestly probably a mode that I think a good set of gamers out there would absolutely pick, because in reality, you just get both performance and quality mode technically combined, even though it's not as high as performance and it's not as high as quality mode in terms of the visuals, but you do get pretty close to both sides. And I personally do like that, and I'm definitely excited to see if that's what Stalker 2 is going to be on the PlayStation 5, and especially the PlayStation 5 Pro. Although the PlayStation 5 Pro could actually have a performance mode, probably with some type of ray tracing, and probably run at somewhere around 60 FPS, but I'm not going to be hopeful that it's going to be like a consistent, but only time will tell once the game comes out for PlayStation 5. But not every game, as we move back to subject, not every game Microsoft has actually done this. So, Sony has been very, very successful with its first-party games releasing on PC. They have been selling more and more units on the PC platform. Now, in just a week from now, you got one of their most popular games of 2024, Helldivers. Helldivers 2 is officially coming to Xbox. Reforge Gaming. Okay, this is what Reforge Gaming has stated. And this is to an extent where I'm going to call a really famous other content creator that I like watching, Dreamcast Guy, who also kind of thinks a little bit of the same way as Reforge Gaming, although he doesn't necessarily think as, as bad as what Reforge Gaming does when it comes to, being a Sony pony of PlayStation fanboy. But Dreamcast Guy is somewhat a little bit in that ballpark, although not quite as horrible. But with Helldivers 2, they both think that with the Xbox platforms, okay, the PlayStation 5 has sold right around, somewhere around 80 million consoles. That's pretty darn good. And that's really starting to catch up to where the PlayStation 4 left off. As I said earlier in this stream, the Xbox Series consoles has only sold like around 30 to 35 million consoles. Like I said, it's not terrible, it's not great, but it is not terrible when you compare things like the GameCube, the original Xbox, and especially the Wii U. Those did worse numbers than what the Series consoles has done currently right now. And I can almost guarantee you, at least, the Xbox Series consoles may not go up to the Xbox One's number, but I can bet you when we get to the next-gen Xbox, or whenever the heck it's coming out, there's reports and rumors that it could be coming out late next year in 2026, but I personally don't think that it's going to come out until 2027. I do think towards the end, when Microsoft officially discontinues production of the Series X and S, I do think they will at least catch up. They will probably sell up to 45 million consoles, up around to probably 50. I don't expect the Series consoles to go up to the Xbox One number, which they have sold. There's been a report that has been leaked that the Xbox Ones have sold 58 toward 60 million consoles. Now, that's still not bad at all. Even though a lot of people have, especially PlayStation fanboys, is like, yeah, bro. Yeah, dude. We sold double of what the Xbox sold. The PS4 did so much better. But 60 million is still... Sorry about that again. 60 million is still pretty darn good. At least at that time, that was pretty good. 60 million may not be nowhere near what the PlayStation 4 sold, but 60 million consoles of the Xbox One, or at least 58, near 60, that's still pretty decently good. And that is not a failure. So, I hate to admit it, but I'm sorry, Reforge, Dreamcast Guy, any of you PlayStation fanboys, Sony ponies out there, the Xbox One was not a failure. It was not a failure. And let me tell you this, the Xbox One X, however, that was the more powerful console over the PlayStation 4 Pro. And I bet that's actually what helped Xbox Ones sell a little bit more, because it was $100 more than the PlayStation 4 Pro, but it was more powerful. You basically got true 4K gaming out of it. Look at a game like Red Dead Redemption 2. Even the first Red Dead Redemption, via backward compatibility from the Xbox 360, Like, those games are native 4K. You can literally play Red Dead Redemption 1 and Red Dead Redemption 2 on either Xbox One X or the Series X currently at 4K, like native 4K. And let me tell you one thing. When Red Dead Redemption 1 got a 4K upgrade in 2018 for the Xbox One X, when Rockstar announced and said this before the release of RDR2, it was a freaking mind-blowing. It was so mind-blowing. It was like almost like as if Rockstar pretty much remastered that game and didn't even have to do anything. It just was a upgrade to play at 4K on a more powerful console. Rockstar didn't even have to remaster it. And guess what? It was the superior version of it. Now, there is a better version currently right now of Red Dead Redemption 1, and it is on the PlayStation systems, and you could play that game at 4K with more improved lighting, but more importantly, it only played at 30 FPS on the PS4 Pro. But once you play that on a PlayStation 5, it doesn't have to be a PlayStation 5 Pro. It could be the base PS5. You're going to get a 60 FPS, which is another huge advantage of that game. But Microsoft had the best version before that, like for pretty much quite a few years before Rockstar actually remastered a port for PlayStation 4. Like, you could, like I said, back in 2018, before RDR2 came out, Rockstar announced a Xbox One X free upgrade for Red Dead Redemption 1 to play at 4K, and it was mind-blowing. It was a huge difference in visuals. It looked so good that it just looked like it was a remaster, and they didn't even remaster the game. It was just higher resolutions, and it looked that damn good. So the One X was a freaking good console, and it still is a good console, even with the Series X and PlayStation 5 out. The One X is still a really good console. If you can find an Xbox One X, and I think right now, if you're lucky, well, I think it's what it would be selling mostly for. If you were to find an Xbox One X off Facebook Marketplace, or even let alone eBay, if you could find one for $200, that is a really good deal. But you also can get a Series X for $250, $300, and that's even a better deal. But if you really want to save money and you still want to get a 4K console, but maybe not a new gen, the One X is still a really good console. And you could find them probably even as low as $150, depending on where you look from and who is selling it. But let's go to the point of what we're doing for this stream. So, over the last week or two, I think it was last week or the week before, but PlayStation has given a up-to-date as to what their future plans are when it comes to their first-party lineup. They have said that they're working with people that are basically going to be able to bring games to other platforms. So basically they're saying they're going third party. And because of Helldivers 2 that's coming to Xbox, and this is another thing that I want to say, is Reforge Gaming, Dreamcast Guy, and there's countless of other content creators that are PlayStation Sony ponies. They think, like, because Xbox is only sitting at 30 million consoles of the Series X and S, and the PlayStation 5 is upwards to 80, they think that Sony is making a big mistake. Because it's like, oh yeah, bro, why would you release that with a system that sold that number, that low of a number? But it's like, 30 million may not seem a lot, but it still is. Like, let's say Helldivers 2 comes out on Xbox Series X as it does. Let's say when it comes out, and probably I'd say between its release date to this holiday season, it manages to sell 3 million or 2 million or maybe even 4 million copies on the Xbox consoles. Guess what? That might not be somewhere like 15, 13 million or something along those lines that the PlayStation 5 numbers have sold. It may not be nowhere near that, but guess what? That's still 4 extra million copies and 4 extra million player base that Sony is getting. So you want to know something? This is what Sony is getting. That's what they're seeing. Even if the Series X and X is not selling as good as the PlayStation 5, like I said, 30 to 35 million is not a great number, but it is not a terrible number when you look at stuff like other consoles like the GameCube and the OG Xbox, and even, like I specify again, the Wii U. Like, it is, I believe that the Xbox Series X and S, at the end of its life cycle, when Microsoft completely discontinues production, I do think 45 to 50 million is probably what it's going to be. And like I said, that's not going to be a bad number. Like, yes, it ain't going to be as great as, like, the Nintendo Switch and most likely the Nintendo Switch 2 and PlayStation 5 systems, but it's still going to be a decent number. And it's still a decent amount of, games that can sell. So Sony knows, and that is why they're releasing Helldivers 2 on Xbox, because yet it might be a low number. At the end of the day, they're going to still make huge amounts of profits and still sell a good bit of units. And like I said, with PlayStation 5, with Helldivers 2, if it sold 10, 11, 13 to 15 million copies, even if the Xbox Series X's have only sold 3 or 4 million, guess what? That's still a quarter of the money that Sony made. That's still more money. Like, Sony still made extra bits of money, so that way they can continue to the next project and hopefully try to break even. And like I said, with game budgets, like as high as they're going, like I said, we had games early on in the PlayStation 4 generation that were sitting at around $10 million upwards to 50 or 60 million. And then right at the beginning, or right at the end of the console generation to the start of the PlayStation 5 Series X, we went upwards to 100 to 150 million. And then now, 4 and 5 years later into the console generation, the PlayStation 5 and Series X generation, now you got games that cost upwards to 200 to 400 some million to make. Like, budgets of 200 to 400 million. That is an insane amount of money to basically produce a game. And when you only sell, like, let's say for an example, PlayStation comes out with Uncharted 5. Let's say they come out with Uncharted 5. It is the year 2026, or 2027, I should say, and that game comes out for the PlayStation 5. Okay, that game cost Sony $350 million to make. Okay, but it only sells like 10 million copies, at least in the first year or so. Guess what? That's not enough money to break even, at least. So in order to break even and to hopefully get more profits, they have to release the games on the other platforms. And then Xbox can still help with sales, even if it is a low number. Like I said, I know I'm going to say it again, but even if Microsoft, like, even if on the Xbox Series X, like I said, if Helldivers 2 comes out and between next week, its release date, upwards to the holiday season, toward the end of the year, they manage to sell 3, maybe possibly 4 million copies of Helldivers 2, even though that might sound like a low number than on the PlayStation systems, that's still a decent number of units and a decent amount of profit in sales that Sony has made. And that is what the future of what we're heading into. Now, Nintendo is not going to be doing this. At least, not for a long time anyway. Nintendo's games do not cost that much money. They're still like under like the 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 million dollar budget for their games, and yet they're selling Switches and Switch 2s left and right. And so they're going to get a lot of millions of users. So Nintendo is going to be perfectly fine, and they're going to be fine for right now. So they are still going to sell millions of units of their games and make huge amounts of profits while keeping those games on their platform only. Microsoft and PlayStation, it is a completely different story here in 2025. So Sony has actually seen it. They have been doing this. They've been third party for pretty much the last 4 years, or I should say 5 years, with games like Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, God of War 2018, God of War Ragnarok, and Last of Us Part 2, and Spider-Man 2018, Miles Morales, as well as Uncharted 4. Like, all of the PlayStation 4 exclusives got released on PC in the last 3 or 4 so years. So they have actually done well. So now Sony is going to try to release its games on the Xbox platforms and as well as the Nintendo platforms, just like what Xbox is doing with its first-party games, releasing them on PlayStation and then releasing them on Nintendo. And that is what I think Sony and Microsoft are planning on doing in order to make profits and hopefully break even of what the budget of the game costs. Because, like I said, back in the early PS4, Xbox One generation, it was only like anywhere from $20 to $60 million of a budget to make a game. Now, in 2025, like a decade later, it costs developers upwards from 200 to 400 million to make. So selling only 10 or 15 million or 7 million or just, whatever the case is, just selling a small amount of units on one particular platform is not going to make them money in the long run. And like I said, I think that for the first year, they should release their games only on their platform for just the first year. And then after that year is over, then release them on the other platforms. That way they can, in a way, entice people to buy their platform. But then also later on down the road, they can still sell more copies and sell more units. But I think we're going to get to the point where Microsoft, which technically already is with some games, not with all games, but at least with some, and Sony, I think, is going to start following suit too, because at the end of the day, if they release them on both systems, or I should say all 3 systems on day one, then they're going to sell millions upon millions. Had a freaking burp there. But they're going to sell millions upon millions of copies, literally, because it's on everything day one. And as much as I hate to say it, that is literally the future that we're heading into. That's literally the future that we're literally heading into right now in 2025. When you look at game budgets, that is just high through the roof. Like I said, 200 upwards to 400 and 450 million dollars to make, compared to something like Uncharted 4 back in 2015, 2016, when it only cost Sony like 50, 60 million. Like, they have to do this. They have to do this. Now, Sean Layden, the former CEO of head of PlayStation, I definitely do disagree with his take that when he said that every console generation has to be a somewhat of an increase of amount of money that a game should sell, like saying something like that when $60 became the standard price point during the PlayStation 2 and OG Xbox generation, he's basically saying then when the PS3 360 came out, then games should have cost $65, then $70 for the PlayStation 4, and then $75 for the current gen, and then $80 for the next gen. I definitely disagree with his take on that, because we got so many games with microtransactions, for one, and then two, a lot of these games come out unfinished or just rush out the door with broken bugs and just countless of issues, and it's just like the games aren't even worth, even let alone $70 currently. Like, for an example, let me think. There's some games. Redfall that came out in 2023 for the Xbox Series X, okay? That game was, I can't remember if it was $70 or if it was one of the last few games that was $60, but even if it was $60, that game just did not sell. It was broken, it was unfinished, and it had horrible performance, even on the more powerful Series X over the Series S. It still didn't run that well. So it didn't end up selling all that great. And when you got games and developers, well, it's not really the developer, it's more of the higher up CEOs of the publishers that is wanting to be like, yeah, we need to sell this game. Hey, we put a lot of work into this game because it's a PlayStation 5. We're getting 4K 60 FPS. We have to raise the game because it took a lot of work for us. No, dog. Like, that's not what sells a game. Like, that is what the CEOs just think. That's how they think. And when you get games that are just unfinished, broken, buggy, and then just have performance issues, and even some cases, even they crash. Sometimes, even some cases, they will crash on your console. Like, it will either crash itself and take you back to the main menu, or even worse, that I've had with Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War on the Xbox Series X, it literally turned off my console. And right now, there's been reports that has been happening currently with the Battlefield 6 beta on the Series X consoles. Not the PS5 and not PC, but just the Xbox Series X. And that's understandable because it's a beta. It's just in a beta stage. It's like it's just getting tested before its initial release. But when you got games like Redfall and even freaking some other games that came out like unfinished and broken and some without features, and Battlefield 2042 is actually another good example that I just remembered after talking about Battlefield 6. That's another game that had a lot of issues and was missing a lot of features at launch, and yet EA was still like, you have to buy it for $70, and it flopped. It flopped miserably, just like what happened with Redfall. So these publishers, like, the games are just not even worth what we are currently paying for. And if you look back, like, yes, Nintendo is a much more greedier company than Sony and Microsoft. Like, me and my friends can actually just admit that. Like, we were just talking about this the other day. Nintendo is the most greediest company out of the three console manufacturers. Sony is the second one, but they're far from Nintendo when it comes to greed. But Microsoft is also kind of in a way, because they actually did announce like 2 months ago that the games, their first party games, were going to release for $80. But guess what? It bit Microsoft in the ass just over the last couple weeks. And then they reversed their situation because of the backlash they got, and because of the low pre-order numbers that The Outer Worlds 2 had. That is why Microsoft went back on its word about pricing and went back to the $70 price tag, because nobody was buying it. That's just what's going to happen. and I've been watching countless of YouTubers here lately, but we're getting to the point where, like, these companies, like, when they do this, like, they're going to ask for higher price points, and they're going to really just put their games on sale. And it's just going to not sell because, like, people are just going to be like, especially, like, that has bills, kids, and whatnot, they're going to be like, bro, I can buy $80 of, like, a week of groceries. Or that's $80 that I can, like, spend on my kid for the next couple of days. Or that's actually, like, let's say that's how much I can spend for my gas on the way to work this month. I'm not going to buy $80 for that game, especially if it's above. I'll save it for gas. And that's what's going to happen. And when that happens, then, you ready for it? Yeah. Then that's when we're going to get to a video game industry crash. Is because that right there. Because nobody is not going to buy these games. And especially with how rushed, broken, and just terrible messes that they are, or at least not all of them, but a good portion of them. Like Redfall, Battlefield 2042, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, even some to an extent. Call of Duty Vanguard was another one, but it wasn't terrible by any means like Cold War was. But I do know Vanguard had a lot of problems at launch. Let's say, trying to think, I know there's some other games that had some issues at launch too. Battlefield 5 I think did as well, although not terrible. But you get the idea. Like, when, like, as much as these publishers want these games to be released, that's another one. I actually just thought of a couple, actually. Fallout 76, Cyberpunk 2077. Although they're better games now with all the updates that they receive. Then you got Anthem in 2019, Fallout 76 in late 2018, Cyberpunk 2077 in late 2020, and then you have Battlefield 2042 in late 2021, and then Redfall in 2023. Halo Infinite kind of did a little bit too. It was actually a little bit rushed, even though it got delayed a year, thankfully. But it was rushed out the door in like 2021. But it wasn't terrible, but it was missing features and such like that. Like, the games are just not going to be worth the $80 price point, let alone the current $70 price point. So, and I think that that's what a lot of gamers out there are just furious about, because they don't want to sit there and just, like, they, like, with all the games getting broken, they don't want to pay high price points and it'd be like, okay, well, why did I buy this garbage if it's just not going to work right, especially for almost $100? Bro, I'm not going to play games anymore. And that's what's going to happen, is we're going to get to a video game crash, and nobody is not going to buy any of these games because of the fact they have microtransactions, they get rushed out the door, broken, unfinished, and the publishers just want to try to meet their quarterly earnings. That's literally all they care about. So they don't really care about making a good game. And when games go to high price points, people are going to really see that. They're going to be like, bro, you have microtransactions. You don't release the games finished. You always have them half-baked, unfinished, not well-polished, bad performance. And it's just like, and you got microtransactions and being broken. Like, why am I going to pay $80 for a game if you got in-game currencies and also the game being broken? Exactly. It's just profit, not a good product. They don't care about a good product. They just care for this. And they will ask as much as they possibly can to try to nickel and dime you. They will try to nickel and dime you as much as they can. And I think we will eventually get to that. We're going to get to video game industry crash at some point in the future, because they're trying to raise profits, or raise, I should say, their price points of their games. And if games keep coming out the way they are, nobody's not going to buy them. And then they're going to be freaking crap out of luck. Like, it's just not going to be that good. So, I had to see if I had any comments there. So, yeah, they're just not going to be good. And they keep coming out like this, and then these higher-up publishers are like, yeah, we have to raise the game prices, market conditions, and then people are just going to be like, yeah, screw that. You don't even know how to make a game, and you ask for microtransactions. Yeah, I got better things to do with my life than to play video games. And then that's when a video game crash is going to happen, because a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, no, I'm not paying high price points for this type of garbage. So, before I end the stream, I'm just going to end this real quick. Reforge Gaming is a freaking Sony pony that literally thinks that he can run a business and just act like he can sell like only a select handful of millions of units. And honestly, if it was me, I would not ever let him run a business like Sony, like be a higher executive of either Xbox or PlayStation or Nintendo or just anything, even if it's not gaming related, if he's just going to do one individual platform or one individual store, just any kind of stuff like that. But as much as I hate to say it, I mean, he has to understand game budgets are extremely high in 2025, way higher than they was a decade ago in 2015 during the early days of the PS4, Xbox One generation. Like, game budgets are literally like triple to 4 times the budgets than they were a decade ago. And in order to make that money back, or to at least break even, or to sell somewhat more units and hopefully make some profits, they have to put their games on other platforms. Even if it's just a small number, it's still going to make them money. Like I said, one last time before I end the stream. Like, if Helldivers 2 next week gets released for the Xbox Series X, and later on, towards the end of the year, it manages to sell between 2, 3, possibly 4 million. It may even sell more. But if it sells 2, 3, 4 million units, that's still a decent number of profits that Sony is making, and amount of player base that Sony has actually gained, and as well as the microtransactions that it probably has that Sony is going to make even more profit on. So, at the end of the day, it's a very, very smart move in order to make the profits back with how high that the game budgets are. It's just smart. That's just what they're going to have to do. And Sony has been doing this lately, releasing their games. Even if it's not day on date, they have been bringing them to PC. And now with Helldivers 2 is a confirm, as well as the announcement that they're going third party, shows that we got games coming to Xbox and the Nintendo Switch 2 in the future. And guess what? It's going to make Sony money. Just like Call of Duty. With it selling on PlayStation like crazy, it's making Microsoft money. And then every microtransactions that it sells on the game, on either PlayStation or Nintendo, it continues to also make Microsoft money. So the same thing's going to happen with Sony. With Helldivers 2, they're going to make money with every copy sold on that console, on the Xbox Series X, and then every microtransaction gets sold, Sony's going to get a cut of that too. So, at the end of the day, I think this is what we're going to have to accept. Because, yes, we're not living in a period where games have to permanently be on one system just to sell systems. Like, we're just in a point where game budgets are literally just sky high through the roof. And Reforge Gaming honestly does not understand that and just thinks that he can do better at that than these companies, when in reality, he would just honestly fucking kill his own company itself, because that's how he thinks. And I know he's a Sony pony, and yeah, he's just a really true hard Sony pony. That's what the guy is. So it's just the future that we're heading into. I definitely don't like it, but at the same time, I understand, and it's got to happen. So I'm not also disappointed with it. But I definitely would love to play God of War, Uncharted, as well as The Last of Us on Xbox systems, just like here after a while, I'm going to buy Forza Horizon 5 and some other Microsoft first-party games that's on PlayStation. I'm definitely excited to finally try each company's first-party games on their competitor platform. So, like I said, this is just the future we're heading into, and people like Dreamcast Guy, Reforge Gaming, just don't honestly fucking get it. They have to make money somehow, some way. So, that's going to pretty much do it for this stream. So, if you could, smack that like button. Also, hit that subscribe button to this channel, and we will keep you up to date with more content like this going forward. And also, just let us know in the comments down below of your thoughts of Reforge Gaming absolutely just crying over games from PlayStation going to other platforms, and crying over the fact that Sony has announced that they are going third party to make their money back with their games. Just let us know in the comment section down below of what you think, the way that he thinks, and just him being a true Sony pony. Because honestly, I personally love playing on everything. And you can see right there all our game collection. We have PlayStation games, Xbox One, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 below. I know that small TV. So yeah, this is Tech and Gaming Reviews. So rate, comment, subscribe, and we shall see you later in the next video. Or stream, I should say. So, peace.